Welcome to The Explainer. So, if you've ever tried to buy property in Spain, you've probably run into this incredibly frustrating brick wall, right? You send out email after email to real estate agents, and you just hear crickets. Well, today, we are going to get to the bottom of exactly why that happens. And look, it's not like you're the only one. So many people are chasing that dream. In fact, property sales to foreigners in Spain, they've been hitting absolute record highs. We're talking nearly 90,000 transactions in a recent period. So yeah, the dream is definitely alive and well. But then there's the reality. You find that perfect place online, you craft a really thoughtful email, you might even pick up the phone, and then just nothing. Radio silence. If you felt like you're just shouting into the void, I promise you, it's not just you. There are some very, very specific reasons this is such a common experience. And get a load of this number. A staggering 48%, nearly half, of all buyer inquiries in Spain just go completely unanswered. So let me say it again. It's not you, it's a systemic issue. So let's dive in and figure out what's really going on. So, the root of all this silence, it's not personal, it's not about you. It's actually built right into the structure of the Spanish real estate market itself. And let me tell you, it operates in a way that's, well, it's really different from what you might be used to in places like the US, the UK, or Germany. Okay, this right here is probably the biggest piece of the puzzle. In Spain, pretty much anyone can decide to be a real estate agent. Seriously. There's no mandatory national license, no university degree required. All you legally need to do is register as self-employed. And you can probably guess what that leads to, right? A massive range in professionalism, training, and frankly, the quality of service you're going to get. And check this out. It's not just about qualifications. Nearly half of all agents in Spain are flying solo. They're one-person operations, often working from home, maybe with very little formal training, and none of the backup or support you'd get from a big agency. Now, just imagine how that affects their ability to juggle a ton of emails and calls. And look, to be fair, a lot of these agents are total pros when it comes to the sales process itself. You know, the paperwork, the deposits, getting it to the notary, they've got that down. But they might not have that deep technical knowledge about the buildings themselves. So when you come in with detailed questions about, say, structural problems or whether that extension is legal, what happens? Well, some might just ghost you rather than admit they don't have the answer. And then there's this other thing, a local phenomenon called inmotorismo. Think of it as property tourism. It's a huge headache for agents, especially in those sunny coastal spots. You get people who book viewings just as a fun thing to do on a weekend trip with zero intention of buying. So to protect their time, agents create these filters to weed people out. And the big problem is you, a serious international buyer, can get caught in that very same net. This table really paints the picture. I mean, look at the US. The big companies control the lion's share of the market. Over in France, it's basically a regulated monopoly for professionals. But Spain, it's the Wild West. It's totally fragmented, just a huge landscape of tiny players and private individuals selling their own places. And that creates this super fierce competition where the name of the game is just closing a deal fast. Sometimes at the expense of good service. Okay, so this brings us to what might be the single most critical point you need to understand. And that is, who does the agent really work for? Because once you get this, it changes everything. This right here is the number one misunderstanding for pretty much every foreign buyer. You assume the agent who's showing you around, being all friendly, is on your team. Right? Wrong. In Spain, their contract, their legal and financial obligation, is to the seller. Their entire job is to get the best deal, meaning the highest price, for the person who owns the property. Yeah. Just let that sink in for a second. The person you were negotiating with is legally bound to work against your best financial interest. All of a sudden you realize you're at the table with no one representing you. That changes the whole game, doesn't it? Okay. I know that all sounds pretty intense, maybe even a little daunting, but don't worry, there is a solution. You absolutely do not have to go it alone in this market. So let's talk about how you can find a real ally. And that ally is called a buyer's agent. Now, they're a pretty rare breed in Spain. We're talking less than 1% of all agents. But their entire business model is working exclusively for you, the buyer. They handle everything from the search to the paperwork to the tough negotiations. And get this, they often end up saving their clients somewhere between 5 and 20% on the final price. A game changer. So, a buyer's agent is amazing for handling the deal, the transaction, but what about the actual bricks and mortar? What about the stuff the agent doesn't see? The hidden structural problems, the legality of that beautiful patio they added, the real energy rating. For that stuff, you need a different kind of expert. And this is precisely where an independent property inspector becomes absolutely essential. A service like I Am a Spectre, for example, gives you all those crucial technical and legal checks that a seller's agent, well, they just can't and frankly aren't supposed to provide. They'll check the structure, dig into the land registry, verify the building's legality, and give you an official valuation, so you can go into negotiations armed with cold, hard facts, not just a gut feeling. So, let's bring this all together. What's the bottom line for you? How do you take all of this and go from being that frustrated person sending emails into the void to a confident, empowered buyer? Well, the biggest takeaway is this: that silence you're experiencing, don't take it personally. It's not a bug, it's a feature of the Spanish system. So instead of getting bogged down in frustration, you can actually take control. The first step is to understand the agent works for the seller. The second step is to build your own team, a team of experts who work only for you. Because, at the end of the day, it really just boils down to one simple question. Is your Spanish property dream going to be built on fact or on faith? Because relying on the seller's agent, that's an act of faith. But hiring your own independent inspector, that ensures your dream is built on a solid foundation of facts. And that, right there, is the kind of peace of mind you absolutely need when you're making one of the biggest investments of your life.